Hi everyone, this is Jim. Welcome to this postmortem of my Blitz game number 733. My opponent here was Tony, who has his own YouTube channel. He has the handle the Sicilianaire on chess.com where he played this. Anyway, I'll put in a link to his video. He already uploaded both games. We played two games, and so you can see both games together from his point of view. And I've already uploaded my version of the first game, and I'll be uploading my version of the second game on Monday. But I wanted to do the postmortem of the game as usual. So here's the postmortem of the first of the two games that we played. He started off with c4, which was already a little bit of a surprise to me. Just because of his name, Sicilianaire, his handle, I thought maybe he would start off with e4, so that's kind of what I was expecting. But I have a system against the English, and I just played my usual setup. He went knight c3, then went with c5, so symmetrical English. He went g3, and now I go d5, and that's my idea, is to play this quick d5. And you can see, actually, in this particular position, I play this against almost any white English setup. In this case, it appears to be one of the principal moves here in this particular move order. Sometimes it's kind of lower down on the list, but it seems like a reasonable way to play at this point. And he played bishop g2, all very logical, just controlling the light squares there. And now I didn't play knight c7, which is the top move. Actually, I don't think it's that good, knight c7. The chess engine likes knight takes c3. That's the top choice of the chess engine. And it's also what Tony was expecting, which I learned from listening to his video. So it's kind of interesting. And I have tried that, but I didn't get so much out of those positions when I tried it, even if the chess engine thinks it's okay. So I went with e6. That's the way I usually play it. And then he played rook b1. And I think here he's still hoping that I'm going to take on c3. He can take back with the b pawn, and then this rook will be well positioned. This is something that was a little bit mysterious to me during the game, why I played rook b1, but now it makes sense listening to his commentary. So anyway, but at that point we're just out of the opening book, and I just continued developing. I don't really want to take. I'm sort of hoping he will take, and then I'll get these big pawns in the center. And of course he noticed that, so he's not taking. He's waiting for me to take. So both sides are sort of waiting. And then he came up with this interesting move, e4. And this is actually a mistake. If he just continues with a normal move, knight to f3, then he should be fine. Knight f3, and we've got a perfectly standard position. So e4, it looks interesting. Looks like it's chasing that knight back and gaining space on the center, but it has this problem in that I have knight b4, and I was fortunate enough to discover this during the game. This is really, knight b4 is the only reason why e4 is a bad move. If it weren't for knight b4, that would be a fine move. But this is just an annoying knight there, looking at the d3 square. And, if he drops his bishop back to defend, he thought about playing bishop f1. I would probably play knight d3 anyway and trade out, and I would end up with a queen on d3. I'm just kind of sitting on his position there. The engine gives black really a strong advantage here in this position, regardless of what white does. He decided just allow knight to d3 and just move his king to the side. So this doesn't lose any material, but it creates severe development problems for white, and black has a pretty good advantage at this point in the game. Although you'll see as we go along that I managed to give the advantage back in stages, so it gets competitive for a while. Let's see, I went knight c6 here, normal developing move. He went a3, keeping the other knight from coming into the b4 square, and also stopping this knight from retreating to b4. So this knight may be a bit stranded. It really has nowhere else to go. But as long as it has the bishop here that it can take, it's not in any trouble. So so I should just leave it there. Let's see. I was thinking about various moves here. When knight d4 was one thing I thought of, but it looks like he can just play knight e1, and nothing great is happening. I was sort of hoping with knight d4, if he trades, I come in with the queen, and then the queen and the knight are coordinating on the f2 square. That might be dangerous. But of course he's not under any obligation to take, and he could just drop his knight back. So I guess the best idea here is probably just to castle. I was kind of curious how the chess engine played it. It liked castling and b5, or just b5 right away. And just to show you the idea, if I castle here, and say he keeps moving his king to safety, and I played b5. b5 is a sack, a pawn sack. He can just take that, but then the queen comes out to b6, and the queen is hitting the knight, and it's also looking indirectly at the f2 pawn once again, and I can push the c pawn forward with a tempo, and it gives black a strong advantage in this position. So this looks pretty good for black. It's just even though black is material down, I guess white's pieces are just so awkwardly placed at this point. Actually, knight takes b5 is not even the best move here. Chess Engine just wants to play b3 and bishop b7, gives that as the best line for both sides. And again, with a big advantage for black. You'll see in this line the even material, but I just have a tremendous development edge, and this knight, I mean this bishop, this poor bishop here is just never going to get out of jail. I played e5, and I was thinking, well, maybe I'll try and keep this bishop from doing anything useful by preventing his e-pawn from coming forward. Also, it gives me a strong control of the d4 square, but it's not as strong as the other moves, and my advantage declined a little bit after that move. Let's see, he went knight d5. Yeah, I gave up the d5 square when I played e5. That's, you know, one of my flaws is I think about all the good things the move is doing for me, and I forget about the opportunities it creates for my opponent. So when I pushed the pawn from e6 to e5, I gave up that square, and he hopped into it right away. So good move by Tony. And then I played bishop g4, and after this, it's actually, we're in the range of about equal. So my advantage has pretty much dissipated. I keep a slight edge through all of this, I guess, but not the big edge I had right away out of the opening. So instead of bishop g4, what is the engine? The engine likes to play a little more aggressively with f5, or also with bishop to e6, challenging that knight right away. So those would be better than what I played. Bishop g5, bishop g4, it's a logical move. I mean, I'm developing a piece, I'm pinning his knight, but it's just not as good as those other moves. It's just not quite the best move. Let's see, he went queen b3. That's a good move. That was a top choice, hitting my knight and forcing me to do something about it. So I decided to take off the bishop at this point. And now he's got an open c file for his rook, and I play b6. You know, one advantage of having pushed d5 is that this diagonal is shut down, so b6 is relatively safe. Otherwise, this loose knight here on c6 could be a problem. So it did have that benefit. Let's see, but he goes queen b5. He attacks my loose knight with his queen. I drop back and defend it with my bishop. He brings his queen back to e2, my castle. And he played h4. h4 is an interesting idea. And it provides some follow-up opportunities. He didn't quite get the most out of it. Let's see, I went rook c8, and then he goes knight to g5. Knight to g5 maybe is not the best here because I can chase it back. What's funny is the chess engine is completely blasé. It wants to just grab the pawn here. So bishop takes, pawn takes, queen takes. I mean, of course, I saw I could grab a pawn here, but I've opened up the h file against my king. You know, I've put this rook to good use, and so that didn't really appeal to me. This line continues: f4, queen back to d8, queen to h5, and h6, and the chess engine says black is just fine here. So, but anyway, if you can live through this kind of attack, I think this is pretty dangerous looking. It might be tough to face in Blitz. So I played in a much simpler way. I played f6, and I kicked his knight back. And so now I have a bit of an advantage again. I've gained a little tempo chasing his knight around. Let's see. He played, oh no, it's my turn. I played bishop to e6 now. I want to try and get rid of this knight. I went knight back to e1. Bishop to h3 was an interesting opportunity. That was the other thing. So, I mean, the positive aspects of his h5 move is it gives him a way to develop this rook without having to go through some kind of long song and dance with the queen and the bishop, having them switch back and forth to give the rook a way out. It immediately gives it an outlet. But the other idea is that it provides this h3 square for the bishop and supports the bishop to h3. And he could provoke a trade of the light squared bishop because it's a pin against my rook, and that would be good. This light squared bishop is a good piece with this pawn structure. So that would be 2 whites' advantage to play that bishop h3 move. Let's see, he went knight e1 here. And I took on d5, so I'm voluntarily giving up my bishop, but I wanted to get rid of that knight. That was also a strong knight there. He took, and I thought I could get some pressure on this pawn and probably round it up, which I eventually managed to do. Let's see, I went knight d4, kicking his queen. The queen came back to c4, defending. Yeah, it's doubly defended. Let's see, I went bishop d6. I wanted to make sure he didn't push that pawn forward with a check and win a piece there, so had to defend against that. Now he makes use of this bishop h3 idea, attacking my rook, and then he gets to place his bishop here. I thought, during the game, I thought this was a mistake, because it kind of loses a pawn after the trade. But actually, the chess engine thinks that this is one of the top moves of the position. So I guess black has kept an advantage through this part of the game. I think maybe starting with this knight e1 move, or back to knight g5, I guess, when I chased his knight back. So black is keeping some kind of advantage through this part of the game. So with the bishop there, I think the best thing to do is just to trade it off. It's too dangerous. And then I can round up this pawn here. I don't see that he has any way to save it. And I have about a 1 pawn advantage in the computer estimate. He has some potential still, though, because he's got this H file and the H pawn coming forward. See, I went queen e8. I'm just ganging up on the pawn and letting him push his pawn all the way forward to h6, which actually made my life difficult in the later stages of the game. Let's see. I didn't go to c8. I went to e8. Sorry. And he went h6, and I went g6. And let's see. He went queen to d5 here, and I just grabbed the pawn. So he's kind of penetrating into his position with my queen, and with his queen, he's penetrating into my position, and he's also getting his king out of the way so his rooks can get into the game. So white is managing to get his pieces organized here, and I haven't really put him away, although I am keeping an edge. Let's see. I played king to h8 here. Wanted to get away from that pin, free up that rook to move. He went rook to c4, getting his rook into the game. I went bishop back to b8. I wanted to put a rook here and maybe chase his queen away. But the queen dropped into b7. Let's see, I played, I left that rook there and played rook to f7. And the queen went all the way back to f3. So I did manage to evict the queen. I'm starting to breathe a little easier here. Let's see, I am 1 pawn up at this point, and I have pretty decent pawn structure. But I do have this awkward situation with my king, which, as I say, it becomes a factor later. Let's go ahead. Let's see, my turn. I went rook d7. I went d3, holding on to that pawn. Rook e to d6, doubling. He goes knight to c2. Well, that's interesting. It looks like I could have taken that pawn there. I didn't check that out in the engine. With the chess engine, I went queen to e7. Yeah, I forget what I was thinking about at this point in the game. I kind of went over this part quickly when I did the computer evaluation. So I'm not sure if there's a problem with taking there or not. Anyway, he goes rook d1 and defends the d pawn, and I go f5. Yeah, I guess that's what I was trying to do. I was trying to set up a push of these pawns, but it seems like I could have just taken that. Let's see, he played queen all the way into a8. I dropped my rook back to defend my bishop. Queen went back, and then I played e4. That was what I was trying to do, was set up this e4 idea, because I've got a pin on this pawn. Yeah, so maybe that's why, I went through it kind of quickly. The computer didn't flag that as an error, not taking the pawn. Maybe it's because I can always win that pawn anyway. It's just too weak to defend. Anyway, he played queen to e3 here, and I grabbed the pawn. So I got it in the end, and now I'm 2 pawns up, and I really should win the game at this point. But, I start to get low on time, and it gets a bit tricky. Let's see, he exchanged 1 pair of rooks. Played queen to c1. So he's got ideas lining up pressure on the c file here, and then pushing the pawn forward to b4. Let's see, I went queen d7. I'm lining up on the d file, maybe bringing my rook to the back rank, trying to penetrate with queen and rook. And also, because I pushed these pawns forward, the other thing it did is it opened up a diagonal for the bishop, so I want to try and get that bishop into the game. He went b3, and I went rook d1. You know, I could have taken that pawn too. Anyway, I went rook d1. He went queen b2 check. And, okay, I moved the king out of check. He went knight to e3, kicking my rook. So this rook venture didn't seem to help too much, but, well, I'm maintaining it on the second rank. I'm going to try and do what I can with it. And he went queen to f6, penetrating here. Also, keeping his eye on the g7 square with the queen. That's another key to this position. I have to also keep an eye on that g7 square because I don't want to get mated. So there was a few moments where I was a little bit worried I might have let go of that, but it looks like I played all this part okay. Let's see, I went queen to f7 to offer the queen trade, which would help me a lot. And of course he just backs up. Queen to c3. He went to c6, yes. Didn't back up. He went over to this side of the board away from the trade. Let's see, I played my rook back to d8. And I was starting to worry about the loose bishop here. And now he went b4. And this is another point where, you know, I had an advantage in the game. I started to let it slip away. The chess engine says the best move in this position is bishop to d6. Just trying to hold on, take back with the bishop if he takes. And otherwise trying to keep things a little bit closed. It just makes it easier to defend my king here. The way I played it, I took the pawn, he takes back, and there's just more open lines. It opens up this c file for his pieces, and it just allows white to cause more trouble. It makes my job more difficult trying to convert this good position into a win. Let's see, I went bishop to e5 here, went queen to b5, went bishop to d4. So I still like to I'm still looking to get that bishop into the game. Went knight to c2, and I dropped the bishop back to f6. I wouldn't mind trading the bishop for the knight, I guess, but maybe I still had some uses for that piece. Plus, it wasn't a trade at that point. He was threatening just to take it, so I was just thinking I could have maybe defended it, but yeah, I think it was better to retreat. Let's see, he went knight e3 again, and now I get my bishop to g5, and I can get rid of this pesky pawn over here on h6. He went rook to c6, but yeah, with my pieces wandering away, here, go ahead and take, he is managing, also because of the files I opened up, he is managing to get his queen and rook active, and you know, it's always dangerous. Queens and rooks work pretty well together. Let's see, I took the pawn, he went queen to e5, and nice little trick trying to coordinate on with to support a rook coming to c7 there, and maybe gain control of the 7th rank. Let's see, I played rook to e8, chasing the queen away. The queen went to d6, and then I took the knight off. So I decided just to go for this heavy piece endgame. I'm 3 pawns up. This really should be a win. The problem and the difficulty comes in that my king is not well sheltered by the pawns, and well, we'll see. White keeps declining to trade queens, which is correct. You know, white is down in material. He should just keep as much. He's down in pawns, so he should keep the pieces on as much as possible, and just try and make things complicated. Let's see. And I keep offering trades, but he doesn't have to accept them. And then I was trying to create some shelter for my king. This didn't work out. Let's see. He went rook to c3. I went king to g7. Queen went to a4. Queen went to a4. I went my rook to e7. Went queen down to a1, setting up a nice little tactic along this diagonal. And I played rook to d7. And rook to d7 is actually a game-losing blunder. So if you want to take a look at this position and see if you can spot the winning move for white. Yeah, I must have been really low on time at this point because these moves are coming quickly. Yeah, I'm moving about 3 seconds per move along here, so I'm probably just trying to stay within the increment. So yeah, that's what happens to me when I'm low on time. I miss obvious tactics. Fortunately, my opponent was low on time too, and didn't spot the idea. But rook to c8 is a discovered check, and I could block with the queen, I suppose. But if I try blocking with the queen, well, first of all, if I move the king out of the way, then he's got rook in the corner as a mate. So I have to block with the queen, and then he wins material with this trick, rook to g8 check, and he's just winning the game. So that one move, that would lose the game if he had spotted it. He played rook to c7 instead of rook to c8. Yeah, he played rook c7 instead of rook c8. And so it's a check. I have to move my king. But this just leads to a trade, and I'm still doing okay here. Although, right on the very next move, I was still a little bit rattled. I think I noticed that during the game that I had just dodged a bullet. He played queen f6, and I played queen f7, which I would like to say is a mouse slip. But in fact, I don't remember. I don't believe it was a mouse slip. I think I just moved the queen there. And of course, he can just take it. The queen is not defended there. I was just trying to chase his queen away. He went queen d6. That's why you should never believe your opponent's moves. You should always question your opponent's moves. Let's see. I went h5. King h3, king g7. I went queen e5 check. And at this point, yeah, I'm starting to... Oh, sorry, I went queen e5 check. I'm just starting to give up, I guess. I can't find a way to make any progress here, and I don't have any time to figure it out. And there's no obvious plan here. Well, we'll get to a point later where I have sort of my last chance before I finally give up and go for the repetition. Queen e5 check again, king h7, trying to get away from the checks. Queen to f4. Go queen to e7, went queen to b8. I go a5. Yeah, I guess I pushed these pawns, but this didn't really help. It'd be nice. I mean, this would be one way to win. This would be a winning plan if I could get this pawn going and at the same time protect my king. But the queen is kind of overloaded in a way. It's got to do two jobs. It's got to shepherd this pawn forward, and it's got to guard the king against checks. So it's all about how exposed my king is. It makes it very difficult to play. Let's see, he went queen to b5, I went queen c7, went queen a4, he's blocked the pawn. I can get behind the pawn, but he can always put his queen in front of it. Let's say I went queen b6, but whenever I leave the second rank, his queen can come in. Queen d7 check, king h6. Let's see, yeah, this is when he starts getting in. Queen f7, I push the pawn one step forward, queen f8 check, and at this point I just go for the draw. So the last chance, according to the chess engine, to win is to play king to g5 here. And I don't know, this would be really hard to play in a blitz game with no time on the clock. I mean, it really looks like I'm walking into a potential mate up here with all these squares covered by his pieces. Queen e7 check. I can block with my queen to f6. Otherwise, I guess that would have been a repetition too if I moved the king back. But this is an attempt to win. So the queen comes out of b4. The idea is to give up that pawn, but try and get this queen in a good square. So queen on e6 is looking indirectly at his king and threatening to push this pawn forward. Let's see, if he takes, then f4 check, king back to h2, and I pick up another, I get a passed pawn, and now I have ideas. I can keep the queen over here and also use the queen to support this pawn going forward. So that maybe there's a winning plan there. Let's see, if he doesn't take the pawn, he could play something like queen to c5, pinning my f-pawn so I can't play f4 with a check. Queen to d7, king back to h2, getting off of that diagonal, king to g4, coming forward like that. And the chess engine claims that that black is better here, but and of course black has more pawns, but it's not clear that there's a straightforward winning plan from this position. Anyway, at this point I just went king to h7 and just allowed the repetition here. I didn't try to escape. So after a few moves, go ahead and play it all out. Yeah.
Threefold repetition.
The game was drawn. So anyway, a pretty interesting game. The first game in our match ended in a draw. Like I said, if you want to see how both games turned out, you can go watch Tony's video. I'll have a pointer to his video in the description, and I'll be uploading the second game in this series on Monday. See you guys then. Bye.